Hey guys, tonight's story begins with a scroll that shouldn't exist, a page that bleeds when the ink runs dry, and a voice whispering in a language no one remembers teaching you. You're not just a scribe. You're the one who noticed the calendar no longer lines up with the sun, the one who found the Sabbath shifting like a shadow, and now you're the one holding a letter sealed in wax that no priest dares to touch. A bell tolls, but no one hears it. A breeze moves without wind. Somewhere beneath the altar, something ancient stirs. You smell dust, myrrh, and scorched parchment, because this is what it feels like when history forgets the truth, and the truth starts writing itself through your hands. So, before you get too cozy, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling. And drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable, let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You wake before the horn, not because you want to, but because the wind finds its way through the animal skin walls again, cold and sour with desert grit. You pull the linen tighter over your shoulders, but the chill has already reached the bones. The sky outside is still dark, indigo, heavy with stars, a time not meant for the living. You sit up on the mat without sound. Your corner of the tent is the same as always. Cracked lamp, stack of papyrus, dull knife for trimming reeds, chipped bowl you forgot to clean last night. A beetle crawls along the rim. You let it pass. There is no bed frame, no cushion, no fire, just the quiet breathing of bodies still dreaming nearby. Other scribes, other sons of Levi, all of you bound to the scrolls, bound to the law, bound to the hours. You slip your sandals on and stand, careful not to wake anyone. The floor is rough with sand and olive pits. Outside, someone stirs the coals, muttering a prayer between coughs. The scent of charred lentils and oil clings to the air. You pass without greeting. No one wants to speak before the horn. The tabernacle looms in the dark, like a shadow stitched into the earth. Its outer veil ripples in the wind, unnatural, as if it breathes. You bow, as you were taught, not out of reverence, out of fear, the kind that settles into your spine and teaches you which steps are allowed and which ones lead to death. Your scriptorium is small, a tent within a tent, a place for copying records, births, laws, priestly orders, bloodline disputes. The writing table is low, flat, worn by elbows and sweat. Inkstones line the edge, some cracked, some cursed, depending on who you ask. You take your place, just as you do every morning, and unroll yesterday's work. But there's something wrong. Your tools have been moved. Not everything, just enough to notice. The reed pen lies at a different angle. The sharpener is missing. The wax tablet you use for notes is slightly open, though you always seal it. You glance around. Nothing's been stolen. Nothing broken. But someone has been here. You look down and see it. A scroll, rolled tight, bound in thin red twine, sealed with wax the color of dried blood. No signature, no stamp, no sender. Your throat tightens. You are not permitted to receive scrolls. Not directly, not without supervision. Not like this. You wait. Listen. No one comes. The camp outside is beginning to stir, but not enough to matter. Just fires being relit. Sandals scraping. Someone coughing up last night's wine. You reach out and touch the scroll. The wax is warm. That makes no sense. You break it anyway. The parchment unrolls slowly, stubbornly, as if it doesn't want to be read. The writing is not in Hebrew, not in Egyptian, not in any script you know, but you understand it. The meaning unfolds inside you like smoke through cloth. You blink. Look again. The letters rearrange. You see your name. Not just your name, but the exact number of times you've broken the Sabbath in your heart. The time you looked at the priest's wife too long. The lie you told your mother when the bread went missing. Your mouth is dry. You try to read further, but the words ripple like water. Then you see it. One phrase that does not change. Meet him. When the horn is late. The horn is never late. You roll the scroll up, tie it again, and slide it beneath your robe. The other scribes arrive one by one, yawning, adjusting their belts, coughing prayers into their hands. None of them notice. You are just another body at another table with another record to transcribe. Just another quiet scribe in a sea of obedience. But your heart is no longer quiet. You don't eat the lentils they bring. You don't copy the census. You don't speak unless spoken to. And when the hour arrives, and the horn doesn't blow, you don't wait. You walk. You don't open it right away. You carry it against your chest like something stolen, not tucked into your scroll pouch, not placed on the table with the others, just beneath your robe, close to your skin, where it can't be seen and where it burns, not with fire, but with a kind of cold that spreads, like water trickling down your spine, the kind of cold that knows your name. You pretend to work. You trace lineage charts from memory, copy an inventory list for the Levite tent, 2 censers, 1 altar knife, 3 oil jars, cracked. Your pen scratches, but your mind is elsewhere. You can feel it under the fabric, like it's breathing. By midday, the heat has crept in. The flies have come. The wind has died. The camp is still and swollen with sweat and silence. You make excuses. Say you need to wash. Say you need more ink. No one questions you. No one ever does. That's the gift of being forgettable. You slip away to the dry well near the boundary stone. No one goes there. Not since the scorpions. You sit with your back to the crumbling rock and unroll the scroll again. The seal is broken, but somehow it looks new. You ignore that. You unroll it slowly. The parchment feels alive. Not soft, not brittle, but thick and wrong, like skin dried too tight over bone. The letters are black, but shimmer faintly, like oil in water. Not ink, not soot. Something else. You run your finger along the edge. It hums. Not loud, not in your ears, but in your teeth. The handwriting is precise, too precise, not a single stroke out of place. And yet, it isn't right. The letters are shaped like yours, but taller, hungrier. They lean forward, as if crawling off the page. You begin to read. The words move. Not all at once, but gradually. A phrase shifts. A name corrects itself. A sentence stretches, splits, recombines. You blink, and it's different. But the meaning stays, somehow deeper. As if the scroll isn't telling you something new, but something you already know, in a part of you too old to speak. You don't understand how you understand, but you do. It speaks of a calendar written before the moon was born, of weeks that never drift, of Sabbaths older than the sun. It speaks of angels, not as messengers, but as architects, timekeepers, scribes with fingers like fire. It calls them the watchful. You've never heard the name, but it feels familiar. You keep reading. It tells you the law is not new, that Moses did not receive it. He remembered it, that Abraham followed it, that Noah kept it, that even Adam was taught. It says you've been chosen. You laugh once, sharp and nervous. A mistake. The scroll doesn't care. It says, your quill is not a tool, but a gate. It says the pages you copy echo longer than the ones you burn. It says, tonight, you will be met. And then, at the bottom of the scroll, It writes something you did not see before. A fresh line, unfurling before your eyes, like ink dropped in water. When the sun touches the western ridge, walk to the last tent before the goats. Do not speak. Do not bring a lamp. Do not pray. Just listen. The scroll goes still. You try to reread it. The words fade. Not smudge, not vanish. Fade, like breath on glass. You roll it back up, tie it. Hold it longer than you should. You look up at the sun. It's already sliding down the sky. The shadows are long now. You don't return to the scriptorium. You don't answer when your name is called. You don't eat. You walk to the goats and wait. The goats have settled. Their hooves shuffle once or twice, then still. The wind carries the faint sour smell of dung and milk. You sit on the sand just beyond the last tent, knees tucked to your chest, fingers cold despite the heat still radiating off the rocks. No lamp, no prayer, just as the scroll instructed. The stars appear slowly, not as pinpricks, but as bruises in the sky, soft and wide, like something bleeding just beyond the veil. You count them without meaning to. 7, then 12, then 21. Then you stop. You are told not to pray, but your lips are already moving. You don't hear him arrive. One moment the air is empty. The next, something is standing beside you. He doesn't speak. Not at first. He doesn't glow, doesn't float, doesn't bear wings. He's barefoot, robes layered in dust. His skin is cracked like river clay, and his hair is the color of ash after rain. You don't look at his face for more than a second. You don't want to. Not because it's frightening, but because it looks too much like yours, and it doesn't blink. You brought the scroll, he says. His voice is quiet, not soft, just deliberate, like someone who's been waiting too long for someone slower to catch up. You nod. He doesn't ask to see it. He crouches beside you, letting his knees pop, like he's done this before, like the world hasn't changed much since the first time he knelt in dust. You think the law began with Moses, he says, that it descended on fire, that it was born on the mountain, but the fire came to remind, not to begin. You say nothing. He picks up a small rock and rolls it between his fingers. There is a book older than Genesis, he says, older than Adam, older than time itself. You don't understand. He seems to expect that. It was written before stars were strung into sky, he continues, before water was taught where to stop, before flesh, before sin, the book that told the bones how to form, the winds when to howl, the blood when to clot. You think of the scroll, of the way the letters moved, of the way they knew you. That book, he says, is not lost, just buried. And it is not read with eyes. He reaches into the folds of his robe. Not quickly, not dramatically, just like someone retrieving a coin or a piece of bread. He pulls out a page. Only, it doesn't look like paper, or parchment, or skin. It looks like something folded from light. Not glowing, not warm, just light. Soft, pale, dim enough to look at, but bright enough to cast a faint shimmer on the sand. He offers it to you. You don't move. He raises an eyebrow, or at least you think he does. You were chosen, he says, not because you are holy, not because you are good, but because you are steady, quiet, obedient to rhythm. You know how to listen. You reach out, touch it. It's cold, not lifeless, but cold in the way of old marble or buried coins. A cold that hums. The words aren't written. They're threaded into the light itself. You try to read them, but they swim, rearrange. They don't move like the scroll did. They respond. They're waiting for your question, he says. You stare at him. I don't have one. You will. You look again, and somehow they've changed. You see fire, water, silence, the creation of breath, the carving of days. You see angels marking time with lines of flame, circling a stone that hasn't been formed yet. You see a calendar so perfect it hums. You smell something strange, myrrh and smoke, and something like metal that's never touched air. You blink, and it's just a page again. He stands. The page vanishes from your hands without you noticing when. You'll receive more, he says, if you remember. Remember what? He doesn't answer. Just looks at you like he's sorry. Then he's gone, and the goats are bleeding like they never stopped. You don't sleep that night. You try, curling on your mat the way you always do. Face to the wall, hands tucked to keep warm, the others breathing heavy around you like livestock. But your eyes won't stay shut. Not even when the wind dies down. Not even when the darkness thickens. Something hums beneath your skin. When the others wake, you rise before them. You wash with cold water. You eat nothing. You head to the scriptorium without speaking, without waiting. Your hands feel strange, lighter, as if they've already written something your mind hasn't caught up to. You unroll the scroll before you know why. Not the census, not the genealogy of Levite births. That scroll, the one with the seal you weren't supposed to break, the one that somehow still feels warm. It has changed again. You're sure of it. The same parchment, the same blood-colored edge. But where yesterday it spoke in fragments and riddles, today it opens like a gate. You read, creation begins again, but not the way you were taught. No formless void, no spirit hovering, no sudden boom of light-splitting chaos, no voice calling the world into being like a king barking orders at his servants. Instead, there is silence, and then presence. The angels are there first, not appearing, being. Standing at the edge of an unformed sky, silent and countless, like stars waiting for names. They do not speak, they measure, they mark. They trace invisible arcs through an empty dark, building the shape of days from breath and fire. One holds a rod that glows when it moves. Another carries a bowl filled with time. You see them not in pictures, but in impressions, memory, as if your bones were present when theirs were drawn. They do not sing. Not yet. First, they calibrate. You see them bend space into symmetry. You see them fold the corners of creation until the lines meet. They construct a wheel, but not of wood, not of metal. A wheel made of perfect recurrence. Days, nights, weeks, seasons. Every revolution smooth, exact. No drift, no guessing. You are shown their names. Not the ones written in the scrolls. No Raphael, no Gabriel, no Michael. Different names. Older. You forget them the moment you see them, but their weight lingers in your chest like smoke after incense. Then you see it. The first light, not spoken, kindled, set in place like a torch above a gate. The sun is born not from command, but calculation. It is assigned a path, a speed, a height. Its heat is exact, not too kind, not too cruel. The angels watch it rise and nod without expression. You see the moon next. It is not part of the design. It arrives late, uninvited. The angels glance at it. They do not speak. But one steps forward and marks a separate track in the dust, curved, off-kilter, smaller, a caution, not a command. And then you see the stars, each one measured, numbered, placed with intent. You realize with a tightness in your chest that they are not decorations, they are signals, ticking lights in the ceiling of a great clock, and when they pulse, the angels take note. The world is not born like a poem. It is assembled like an engine. The scroll shimmers in your hands. You blink, rub your eyes. You're still in the scriptorium. A bowl of water sits untouched beside you. A gnat has drowned in it. You look down at what you've written. You don't remember writing it, but there it is, page after page, covered in black ink and letters that shine faintly when the light hits at a slant. Some of them aren't even Hebrew, not fully. You close the scroll and wrap it tight. You tell no one, because something in you knows this is not a story you're reading. It's a memory you're borrowing. You're careful the next morning. You wash slower, eat the barley even though it tastes like dust. You wait for the others to gather first and enter the scriptorium last. You take your usual place, adjust your ink, flatten your palms like you always do. Nothing about you must look different, but you feel it. That hum again, behind your eyes and the bones of your fingers. The feeling that something is waiting, watching, or worse, counting. You unroll the scroll with practiced ease, as if it's nothing special, just another list, another forgotten tract for the genealogies. But the moment the parchment touches air, the ink begins to shift again. You don't gasp this time. You watch. The words realign into something cleaner than speech. Symbols arranged in rhythm, not meaning. Patterns, columns, rows. As if the scroll has become not a story, but a system. You don't understand at first. Not the numbers, not the lines, not the strange glyphs written vertically in triplets. Then you blink, and it clicks. You see the calendar. Not a suggestion, not a tradition, not something man invented to chase the seasons or measure harvests. This one is different. Exact. It begins with the sun. 364 days. Not 365, not 354, not the wandering moons you've been told to follow by the temple priests with their star maps and polished horns. This calendar is built on light, fixed weeks, fixed seasons, 4 quarters, each carved from the same cloth. 13 weeks per quarter, 7 days per week, a rhythm unbroken, pure. The Sabbath is not a custom here. It's a structure, an anchor locked into the bones of the sky. It falls every 7th day, without fail, without drift, without needing to be adjusted, like a scale out of balance. You run your fingers over the lines. Every holy day, every feast, every harvest, set, not guessed, not recalculated, set, like constellations hammered into glass. And then you see it, a shadow in the corner. Another calendar, smaller, off-center, the lunar one. You almost laugh. It looks childish beside the solar order, like someone trying to trace perfection with a shaking hand. You see how it slips, 12, 11 days off here, 12 there. Feasts misplaced, Sabbaths forgotten. A calendar that must be fixed again and again, patched like a tent eaten by moths. The scroll does not mock it. It simply shows you the drift. Over years, over centuries, you see a line of priests. You recognize the robes. Men you've studied under. Men you trust. Each one adjusting the days, twisting the reckoning to fit the moon. Not out of wickedness, out of fear. The people demanded signs, and the moon gave them prettier ones. You see yourself, younger, eager, copying feast dates without question, watching the high priest squint at the stars like they owe him answers. Now you know. You've been writing shadows your whole life. The scroll pulses once more. A final line curls into being like smoke from a snuffed lamp. The moon deceives the eye, but the sun remembers. You roll the scroll tight, not the string. Hide it deep within the folds of your robe where no one can see. Outside, a priest is marking the phase of the moon with a bit of charcoal on a skin drum. He smiles as he does it, proud, harmless. You nod to him. Then walk the other way. You do not write anything for the rest of the day. Because now, you understand. You were not chosen to remember the festivals. You were chosen to restore the clock. It happens during the second watch of the night. You are dreaming, or you think you are. It's hard to tell now. Sleep and waking blur more easily than they used to. There's a coldness in your chest, a hollow behind your ribs that doesn't go away no matter how tightly you wrap your robe. You lie on your mat, eyes shut, but your body feels wrong, as if you've been pulled a few inches sideways into a version of yourself that doesn't fully fit. The air smells of smoke, but there is no fire, no incense, just dust. Then it begins. The sound is faint at first. Not a voice, not quite. More like wind through reeds. Then syllables form, curling into words before they reach your ears. Not spoken aloud, but embedded, like a thought that isn't yours. Watch. You open your eyes, but the tent is gone. You are standing on a hill. The sky is bright, but not from sun or moon. There are no stars, just a flat, sourceless light, like the world forgot how to cast shadows. Below, a city sprawls. You don't recognize it. The buildings are taller than towers, but smooth, gleaming with stone you can't name. The people walk quickly, not speaking, all bent slightly forward like they're leaning into a storm you can't see. You hear music, but it's wrong, hollow, repetitive, like a celebration performed by people who forgot what they're celebrating. A calendar hangs from one wall. You stare at it. It's familiar, vaguely. 7 days, months you recognize, feasts you do not. Passover falls in the wrong season. Pentecost is missing entirely. The Sabbath drifts. Sometimes it lands on a Tuesday, sometimes a Friday. You see priests arguing, pointing at scrolls, then adjusting them again and again. A woman weeps beside a broken sundial. A child counts days on her fingers and then shakes her head when they don't add up. Everything is slightly wrong, like a song played in the right key but the wrong rhythm. And then you see what the world has done to fix it. The church. Not your church. Something else. Its walls are massive, too white, too clean. The altars are surrounded by polished gears. You see a priest place a wafer on a machine and press a button. A light blinks red, then green. A prayer scroll is fed into a slot, and an answer spits out. You hear them speak. They blame the ancestors, the old scribes, the ones who miscalculated the equinox, the ones who couldn't keep time straight in the wilderness. They say it's man's fault that holy days lost their place, that the drift was inevitable. You feel your hands clench, because you know that's not true. And then the sky above you flickers. Once, then again, a shadow passes over the city. It is not shaped like a bird, not shaped like anything. It crawls, not on buildings, not on people, but on time itself. You feel it, rewinding moments, repeating hours, stretching minutes, until they snap. Clocks stop, then tick backward. Children age and forget. Feasts arrive early, then vanish. Priests forget their own names. You see them open books that no longer say what they once did. You try to speak, to warn them, but no sound comes out. And then you feel it turn toward you. The thing behind the drift. It doesn't have a form, but it has weight. Old, hungry, wound tight around time like a vine choking a tree. Not chaos, not accident, a will. The voice returns. Heaven does not blame the scribes. You are trembling now. It blames the thief. And then the city is gone. You're on your mat again. The stars are out. The tent is quiet. You sit up, throat dry, heart hammering in your chest like it wants out. You reach for the scroll, but it's not needed. The words have already rewritten themselves behind your eyes. You saw the future. You saw the drift. And you know now. This is not about men failing to mark the days. It's about something darker, trying to erase them. The scroll is heavier today. You don't know why. The parchment hasn't changed. The seal is still broken, still blood-colored. But when you lift it from your pouch, your hands tremble with the weight, as if you're holding more than a message, something denser than paper, a history the world forgot how to carry. You wait until the scriptorium is empty. The others are outside preparing for a census recount. The high priest's numbers were wrong again. Too many males listed in a family of shepherds with no sons. Someone's head will roll for it. But not yours. You volunteered to stay back. No one questioned it. You're quiet, obedient, forgettable, just the way they like their scribes. You sit, unroll the scroll, let the light catch the edge of the ink, and there it is. A new passage, one you didn't see before. You know now. The scroll adds entries. When you sleep, when you dream, when you're not watching. This one begins with a name. Adam. You pause. The breath catches in your throat. Not because you're surprised, but because the name feels recent. Like it's being whispered just outside the tent. You read. Not the Genesis version. Not the shaped from dust, rib from flesh, fruit in hand Adam of the priest's sermons. Not the one they used to scare children from touching the wrong tree. This Adam is older, lonelier. He walks in silence, long before Eve, long before the garden, long before the animals had names. He is not naked, not clothed. His body flickers between forms as the angels teach him how to inhabit it. They do not speak to him with voices. They inscribe. In the air, on stones, on leaves that crumble into ash the moment he nods. They teach him patterns, the cycle of 7, the 3 windows of prayer, the precise hour to wash, the direction to face, when speaking the name of the one who has no name. They do not treat him like a child. They treat him like a student. And the law is not a punishment. It is a rhythm, a heartbeat. The Sabbath is not a reward for work. It is the frame upon which time is hung, a throne that visits every 7th day, whether man sits upon it or not. You see Adam mark the first Sabbath, alone, no garden yet, no serpent, no sin, just him and the angels and the weight of 7. He lights a fire, not for warmth, for memory. You feel tears rising before you realize it. Not sadness, not joy. Recognition, as if you were there. The scroll goes deeper. Adam writes, not in clay, not with tools, but with his breath. Into the soil, into bark, into the water. The first language, not spoken, not sung, inscribed into creation. You see symbols that bend when you stare too long, glyphs that hum with meaning stacked like layers in a temple veil. You reach for your stylus without thinking. Your hand moves fast, too fast. Words pour out of you in characters you do not know, not Hebrew, not any tongue you've been trained in. They feel remembered. When you pause, sweat beads on your forehead. You've written pages, dozens. You flip one over, and it's not your handwriting, but it's yours. A line stands out. Adam was taught, not born wise. You swallow hard, because that's not what they say. They say Adam was perfect, that the law came after sin, that wisdom was the reward for obedience. But the scroll says otherwise, that wisdom came first, that obedience was taught, not as servitude, but as alignment. You feel dizzy, like the tent is spinning slowly beneath you, like the earth forgot which way it turns. You close the scroll, wrap it tight, But the words, they do not leave. They burn behind your eyes. And you know, you are now carrying laws that predate the world. Words even Adam never dared speak aloud. The message is not delivered by hand. No wax seal, no parchment, no whisper from a passing Levite pretending not to know you. Just a smear of charcoal on your tent wall at dawn. A symbol shaped like an eye with no pupil. You recognize it from the scroll. It's appeared before, faintly, in the margins. Always before a passage that changes when you look away. You pack nothing. No food, no lamp. You know you won't need them. The directions are unwritten, but you already know them. You walk east, past the last ring of tents, past the burial mounds, past the place where the goats refuse to graze. The desert flattens, then rises again in a slow, breathless climb. You count your steps without meaning to. Every seventh one echoes. By midday, your robe is soaked. The sky is white with heat. There's no sound but your own breath and something else. Buzzing. Not insects, not wind, but a soft, low vibration, like the edge of a word that hasn't been spoken yet. Then you see it. The tree. Dead, twisted, its bark pale and cracked like sunburned skin, but its branches are shaped wrong, angled, sharp, reaching not toward the sky, but toward something beneath it, like lightning frozen in mid-fall. You circle it once. No cave. You circle again. And there, behind a tangle of dry roots, a split in the earth, a narrow slit no wider than your shoulders. You drop to your knees, crawl. The rock scrapes your elbows. Sand clings to your skin. You breathe shallow. The buzzing grows louder. The moment your foot disappears into the dark, the air changes, cooler, still. And then, silence. You emerge into a hollow. The ceiling low, the walls curved like the inside of a skull. Bones line the floor. Not scattered, stacked. Neatly, intentionally. Some large, rib cages that could never have belonged to men. Skulls too narrow, teeth too flat. Some are fused together. Spines wrapped in spirals, as if something tried to stand upright and failed. You try not to look at them. You try not to imagine which ones were buried, and which ones were put here. You walk carefully, following the hum. At the far end of the chamber, beneath a half-collapsed arch of stone, you find it. The scroll, wrapped in cloth that hasn't rotted. You don't touch it yet. Your hand hovers, because the moment you see the name scrawled across the outer wrap, the hair on your arms lifts. Enoch. You weren't taught to fear him. You weren't taught much of him at all. A footnote in the genealogies. A man who walked with God, and then was not. No death. No tomb. Just gone. You pick up the scroll. It's cold. The hum fades. But something else rises. Not a sound. A presence. Behind you. You turn. Nothing. But your chest tightens. Not with fear. Not exactly. With proximity. Like standing too close to a storm that hasn't formed yet. You hear a breath. Not yours. Not human. And then a whisper. Not from air. From the scroll. You unwrap it. Inside. Pages older than paper. Not parchment. Not skin. Something translucent and soft, like onion layers soaked in ash. The writing is dark red. Not ink. Not blood. Something older. The words don't shimmer. They don't rearrange. They watch. You read only the first line before your eyes blur. The watchers descend at dusk. Your hands begin to shake. You don't read more. You wrap it. Tuck it beneath your robe. You leave without looking back. The bones remain undisturbed. But as you crawl through the slit again, you feel it behind you. Not a curse. Not a blessing. A question, still unanswered. You walk back to camp before nightfall. No one sees you return. No one asks where you've been. You wash the dust from your face, lay on your mat, close your eyes. But you don't sleep, because now Enoch is awake. The scroll refuses to open at first. You try gently, tracing the knots with your fingernail like you always do, but the binding holds, tighter than before, as if the parchment itself is bracing, waiting for something you're not yet ready to see. So you sit with it. No ink, no tools, just your hands on the table, your knees folded beneath you, the tent quiet around you like a womb. The smell has changed. Less of goat hide and dust, more of something ancient and metallic, like rusted brass in the sun. You breathe. Once, twice. Then the knot loosens. No tearing, no sound, just a slow sigh of release, as if the scroll itself has exhaled. And there it is. The next page. Drawings. Not words, not visions, schematics. You blink. At first, they look like maps. But the rivers don't flow. The roads don't lead anywhere. You tilt the page, and it clicks. These aren't roads. They're measurements. A calendar, but not like the one from before. This one breathes. 13 gates, 4 seasons. Each quarter held in place by a tower that casts no shadow. The sun moves not in a circle, but a helix, rising higher, then lower, in a dance you feel in your spine. The diagram hums. You recognize the hand. It's the same script as the cave scroll, but more deliberate now, less frantic, less etched by fear, more carved in purpose. Enoch. He wasn't just a witness. He was a timekeeper. You copy the first diagram, slowly, carefully, onto fresh parchment. Every line must be perfect, every stroke exact. The scroll doesn't allow for guessing. When you hesitate, the ink smears. When you rush, the lines vanish. You breathe with the pattern. 4 seasons, 13 weeks each. 7 days per week. No drift. You see now what the priests missed, what the church obscured, what the moons have tried to unravel. This calendar is not meant to track men. It's meant to track God. Enoch was not just a prophet. He was a priest of alignment. His job was not to interpret the signs, but to measure them, to build a vessel that could hold divine recurrence. You keep drawing. You see not just circles, but spirals. Not just months, but gates, numbered and named. Each one tied to an angel, each one tethered to a judgment. Every day, wait. You feel your pulse slow to match the diagrams. This is what order feels like. You glance down. You've copied pages. You didn't even notice your hand moving. Your candle is almost gone. You don't remember lighting it. The scroll shows one last image. A wheel, turning within a wheel, crowned in flame. The outer rim reads, "To walk with God is to follow His rhythm." You feel your throat tighten, because now you understand. Enoch didn't vanish. He ascended, because he synchronized. The world below drifted. The church bent the weeks. The moons lured the hearts of men. But Enoch, he kept count, not of days, of turns. And when the final one aligned, he wasn't taken. He arrived. You set down your stylus. Your hand aches, but the ache feels holy. You stare at the diagrams one last time before folding the parchment into your robe. You don't know where these wheels lead, but you've already started turning with them. And something deep in your bones knows the way. The scroll doesn't open this time. It shivers. You don't touch it right away. You feel the change before your fingers even graze the edge. A tightness in the air, like a bowstring pulled taut. The air is hotter, sharper. You haven't lit the oil lamp yet, but the shadows in the tent are deeper than they should be. Something is waiting inside the parchment. You unroll it slowly. The ink is darker now, not brown, not red, black, with a green sheen when the light shifts, as if it was drawn from something venomous. You read, and the scroll opens, not with a name, but with a warning. These are the pages kept from men, hidden from the temple, erased from the lips of the priests. You read anyway. You can't stop. The words slide under your skin. It begins before Babel, before flood, before the world even had kingdoms to fall. The Watchers, 200 of them. Not metaphor, not poetry. Beings of fire and intellect, sent not to rule, but to observe, to watch mankind grow, to teach, gently, from a distance. But they descended, not by accident, by desire. You see it, not in a vision, but in memory. Mount Hermon, its peak glowing like iron in a forge, the wind circling like a living thing, and there, shapes descending, not winged, not monstrous, just wrong, too tall, too bright, faces like statues half-formed, voices that do not echo because they do not belong to this world. They took wives, daughters of men, not by force, but by charm, power, seduction, older than speech. And the women consented. That's what haunts you most. You see the children, the Nephilim, born in silence, grown in weeks, towering, hungry, always hungry, their bodies half mortal, half ether, unable to die, unable to rest. They were not just giants. They were hybrids, errors that could not be unmade. And their fathers taught things never meant for Earth. You copy the list with a trembling hand. Weapons, forging metal from rock, crafting blades, not for harvesting, but for hunting. Cosmetics, paints to redden lips, powders to pale the face, masks that made lies beautiful. Enchantments, roots soaked in moonlight, spells carved into animal bone, curses sung beneath blood moons. And then, worse. You stop breathing as you copy the next word. Child unmaking. They taught the women how to end life before it drew first breath, how to pull it back before the soul was sealed. You don't know the word for what that is. There is no word in your tongue that carries it fully, but the scroll names it, and the angels were punished. Some, bound in chains beneath mountains no map will mark. Others, lost, dispersed, dissolved into bloodlines that still ripple under human skin. You feel it then, a presence in the tent. You turn, no one, but the hair on your arm stands upright, and the scroll whispers, not in Hebrew, not in any language you've ever heard spoken aloud, but you understand it. Their children still walk. You close the scroll too fast. Your breath catches. You think of the man you saw last season, the traitor who didn't blink, who never ate, who smiled too wide when he touched the silver. You think of the young scribe whose eyes changed colors when he cried. You think of yourself. You look down at your hands. They shake. But you don't stop copying, because now you understand why the priests won't read this scroll. It's not just forbidden. It's true. And truth, this old, doesn't sleep. The angel does not arrive with wings. He does not glow. He does not shimmer. He does not even cast a shadow. You find him sitting by the fire pit before dawn, barefoot, robed in a fabric the color of bone left too long in the sun. He is stirring ash with a reed, humming a song that makes your teeth ache. You don't ask who he is. You already know. He does not look at you. He speaks without turning his head. You've been reading pieces, His voice is flat, not cruel, not kind, just level, like a stone placed precisely where it's meant to fall. But it's not a scroll you need. He hands you a ledger, bound in hide, stained in corners. It smells like riverbed and burnt feathers. You open it. There is no title, no blessing, just page after page of names and numbers, inked in alternating red and black. The script is tight, mechanical. It doesn't hum like the others. It ticks. The first entries are familiar. Adam, Seth, Enosh, names you know, ages you've memorized. But the numbers are different, off by years. Then you realize they're not lifespans. They're timestamps, coordinates in time, each name followed by a date, a measurement, a column labeled vibration, another, alignment, and one more, variance. The last column holds symbols you don't understand, a language shaped like circles broken mid-breath. The angel finally looks at you. This is not history, he says. This is maintenance. You turn the page, and there it is. The flood. Not titled, logged, dated, calibrated, marked by position of the sun, tilt of the earth, and lunar interference. You stare at the data. The flood was not just a punishment, not just judgment, not just wrath. It was a reset. You feel it in your gut. The world wasn't merely drowned. It was rebalanced. The old calendar was shattered. The Sabbaths misaligned. The pulses of the earth no longer matched the order of heaven. You trace the figures. Before the flood, months were longer. The seasons drifted. The constellations tilted out of phase. Even the soil had begun to reject its rhythm. Tend of Cummin. Seeds sprouting at odd intervals, animals mating out of season, men losing track of when to pray. Why? You whisper. The angel closes his eyes. Because they taught things before their time. You don't need him to explain who they are. You remember the watchers. Their children. Their gifts. The flood was not just for them. It was for the world they broke. You keep flipping. After the rainfall columns, a new section begins, labeled simply, recalibration. The new sun cycle, the new moon tracking, the reset of the Sabbath. But one column is empty. You touch the edge of it. The angel nods. That's why you're here. You look closer. It's a missing value, a zero that never got filled. The final correction. Something they forgot to log after the waters receded. A number so small it wouldn't matter, unless it were repeated. Year after year, century after century. An error that would twist the weeks, warp the feasts, shift the days so subtly no priest would notice, until the Sabbath was lost. You run your finger down the blank column. You want me to finish this? You ask. No. The angel replies, rising. We want you to remember it. And then he's gone. No footsteps. No sound. Just the smell of something wet and ancient, and the ticking of that ledger behind your ribs. You stare at the final page. It's not complete, but it will be, because now you understand. The flood wasn't a punishment. It was a recalibration. And someone, somewhere, has to keep the balance. You don't remember falling asleep. You wake with the scroll already open, and your hand halfway through copying a page you don't recall reading. The ink is wet. The style is still warm in your grip. You sit up slowly, blinking away the residue of dreams that smell like salt water and pitch. The tent is quiet, but outside, the wind howls through the bones of the camp, like it's looking for something that got left behind. The scroll hums softly. You glance down. It's not the main text this time. It's a side ledger, narrower, written in Noah's own hand. The ink is faded, brown with age, but precise. each line marked with the same rhythm, the same indented pause every 7 strokes. A personal record, a Sabbath log. At first, it doesn't make sense. Why would Noah track Sabbaths on the ark? What does a week mean when the sun is blotted out, when day and night blur into the same colorless fog? You read further. The record begins not when the rain starts, but just before. 7 days prior, Noah marks the last Sabbath on dry land. He writes the psalm he recited, the prayer he spoke while his neighbors laughed outside the hull, the way the wind stopped blowing just after sundown. Then the rain came. 40 days. But not just water. The sky didn't just pour, it screamed. Thunder like something being torn in half. A sound like iron nails being driven into the sky itself. You see it in his handwriting. It starts to change. The ink gets shaky. The lines more cramped. He no longer writes psalms. He counts. 7 days. Then another 7. And another. The Sabbath becomes his anchor, not for rest, but for stability. While the animals cried, while the family stopped speaking, while the sky forgot to change, and the horizon disappeared entirely. He lights no fires. He performs no rites. But every 7th day, he writes a single word. Still, you swallow hard. The scroll shifts beneath your hand. New pages appear. You keep copying. Noah records the days not by stars or shadows, but by heartbeat. He counts the rise and fall of his chest, the pacing of his thoughts, the cycles of sleep that stopped aligning with anything outside the hull. You realize what he was doing. The Sabbath didn't just keep him sane. It kept time from unraveling. It tethered the calendar to a living mind, a steady rhythm within a drowning world. A cosmic metronome in human skin. You see him now, not as the bearded figure from children's murals smiling next to a giraffe. You see a man sitting alone in the dark, whispering the days to himself while water smothers the planet 1 inch at a time. You keep writing. Eventually, the rain stops. But Noah's Sabbaths don't. Even after the clouds break, even after the birds vanish into the sky and don't return. Even after the mountain peaks finally pierce the surface of the water like broken teeth, he keeps counting. And when the ark lands, when the wooden hull kisses stone for the first time in a year, he doesn't exit immediately. He waits until the Sabbath ends. Only then does he open the door. You put down your stylus. Your hands are cold, your knees numb from kneeling, but your pulse is slow, measured. You realize you've been breathing in 7s. Inhale, 2, 3. Hold, 2. Exhale, 2, 3. It's quiet outside. No wind. Just the faint echo of something steady beneath the silence. A rhythm not of this world. And now you understand. Noah didn't just survive the flood. He carried time through it. And if he hadn't, you wouldn't be kneeling here now. You've read the story before. Abraham, father of nations, builder of altars, friend of God. But the scroll tells it differently this time. Not as a patriarch, but as a boy. You feel it before the ink dries. A shift in tone, in temperature. The tent seems smaller now. The air denser, like someone else is breathing with you. You press your palm against the parchment to steady it. It begins in a workshop, not a temple, not a field. A shop that smells of soot and sandalwood, where wood chips curl like dead tongues on the floor, and ash smudges every surface. The boy's name isn't spoken at first, just son. He carves idols with his father, not out of belief, but obedience. His father's shop is respected, after all. The priests visit often. Gold coins exchange hands in whispers. The boy is quiet, but his eyes linger. On the cracks in the stone faces, on the hollowness behind the painted eyes. on the way the gods fall sideways when nudged too hard. He begins to ask questions. Why do they eat grain but never chew? Why do they hold swords but never lift them? Why do they receive offerings but never say thank you? His father laughs, says tradition doesn't need answers, only loyalty. The boy does not laugh. One night, he stays behind after the shop is locked. He doesn't smash anything. Not yet. He sits, alone, staring at a god carved to look like a bull, horns chipped, belly full of coins. He speaks aloud, not to it, but at it. If you are what they say, strike me. Nothing, not even a creak in the floorboards. He waits, then stands, and tips the idol with one finger. It falls with a thud. No smoke, no thunder, just a crack across its nose and silence. He stares at the broken face, and something opens in him. Not rage, not rebellion, revelation. This god was hollow. The others, too. He sees it now, not just in the shop, in the entire city. The temples, the statues, the festivals, they are stage props. Empty vessels for fear, mirrors for men who worship their own reflection. So the boy returns the next night, and the next. Each time, another idol disappears. Not shattered in the street. That would be too loud. He buries them, one by one, in the fields where no grain grows, in the riverbank that eats what no one remembers, until one remains. The largest, too heavy to move, too sacred to touch. He doesn't try to lift it. He feeds it. A meal meant for 3 days of offerings. Then he smashes the bowls, splatters the oil, lays the smaller tools at its feet. When his father arrives in the morning, the shop is chaos. He yells, weeps, demands to know who would do such a thing. The boy shrugs. The largest god did it. His father strikes him. Hard. But the boy does not flinch. The scroll pauses here. The ink lightens, as if the story itself holds its breath. Then, the next line burns darker. That night, the boy dreams. Not of idols, of stars. Millions of them, falling upward. He sees a figure in the distance, cloaked in light, not walking, not floating, measuring, charting the sky with fingers of fire. The boy walks toward him. No name is spoken, but something is passed to him. Not a sword, not a scroll, a rhythm, the same one you felt in Noah's breath, the same one the angel etched into the margins. You place your hand on the parchment, and for a moment, you are the boy, standing barefoot in a ruined workshop, surrounded by silence, and a truth that no longer fits in stone. You close the scroll. Outside, someone calls your name, but you don't answer yet. You're still standing in the wreckage, and part of you doesn't want to leave. The fire doesn't burn. It hovers, low to the ground, just beyond the boundary stones. It crackles like dry reeds in windless air, but gives off no heat. The shepherds won't approach it. The animals edge away, their eyes wide and still. But Abraham walks straight toward it. You see him in the scroll, not as a patriarch, not as the man who bartered with God over Sodom, but barefoot in the dust, wearing a traveler's robe and carrying nothing but a knife and a jar of oil. He kneels, not out of fear, out of recognition, because he's seen this fire before. It was there in the stars, the night he was called. It danced in the smoke when he built his first altar. It flickered in the breath of his son when he cried for the first time. But now, it speaks, not in words, in presence. And then, they step through. Not men, not fully. Figures cloaked in flame and silence, eyes veiled, hands unburned, wings folded into their backs like a memory of something heavier. They don't command. They instruct, not with thunder, with ritual. One kneels beside Abraham and draws in the sand. Lines, arcs, intersecting points. You recognize them. The same measurements Enoch carved into his diagrams. The solar cycle, the feast alignments, the 364-day rhythm. Another holds out a blade, not for battle, for covenant. You think of circumcision, the rite that will mark Abraham's flesh forever. But this goes deeper. They teach him the laws of the body, what to eat, what to avoid, what purifies, and what stains. Not superstition, not health advice, calibration. They speak of bloodlines, of energetic currents through muscle and marrow, how certain animals disrupt the frequencies of the spirit, how others harmonize with it. You copy the words carefully, not just dietary laws, seasonal rituals, monthly offerings, Sabbaths that align not with moons, but with heaven's heartbeat. You see Abraham's face shift, not with doubt, with remembering, like something dormant in his blood is being activated. The third angel opens a scroll of their own, small, heavy, bound in sinew, and sealed with a sigil you can't quite hold in your mind. They place it in Abraham's hands, not to keep, to copy. And he does. For 7 days, he writes. You write with him now, through the scroll. The laws are not cold. They're musical. Commands not barked, but hummed. Do not mix wool and linen, not because it is wrong, but because it dissonates. Do not eat the flesh of the swine, not because it is cursed, but because it carries a rhythm that interrupts divine recall. Purity is not about appearance. It's about resonance. Abraham writes until his fingers bleed, and the fire does not dim. On the 8th day, they vanish. No farewell, no blaze of light. Just gone. Only the scroll remains, and a faint circle of scorched earth where the grass won't grow again. You sit back from the parchment. The tent is quiet, but you hear it. The rhythm again, the pulse beneath the pulse. You always thought Moses was the first to receive the law. You were wrong. Abraham was taught first, not because he asked, because he listened. The scroll trembles once, then stills. You touch the edge, and now you understand. The covenant was not a moment. It was a frequency, and some part of you is starting to vibrate with it. You always thought you knew this story. The binding, the boy, the knife. But the scroll says otherwise. It begins not on the mountain, but 3 nights before, with a shadow that doesn't cast one, a figure standing at the edge of Abraham's camp, watching, silent, still as salt. And when the wind passes through him, it doesn't stir his robe. It avoids him. The servants don't see, but the boy does. Isaac doesn't say anything at first, but that night he doesn't sleep, and neither does the ram tethered near the tent. It bleats softly, then louder, then not at all. When you blink, the ink shifts. The name appears. Mastema. Not a demon, not an angel, something in between. The adversary, not of men, of faith. You keep copying, slower now. The voice that speaks to God, in the courts of heaven. The one who does not lie, but accuses. Who stands on the line between obedience and doubt, and dares the faithful to cross it. He appears before God and speaks, not with fire, not with hatred, with logic. Abraham loves you because you bless him, Mastema says. Take the child, strip the blessing, make him choose. You pause. Your hand trembles over the parchment, because you've prayed this story like a liturgy. But you never knew it was a trial, not just of Abraham, but of heaven itself. God does not deny him. He allows it. And Abraham is told, as always, in silence. No reason, no warning, just go to Moriah. 3 days, with wood, with rope, with the boy. The scroll grows tight in your grip. You feel it now. Not just a journey, but a collision. Every step closer to the peak, Mestima walks too. Not seen, not heard, but breathing behind the veil of wind. And Isaac? He knows. Not everything, but enough. He feels the absence, the way the birds avoid them, the way the ground feels heavy beneath his feet. You keep writing. The mountain rises like a wound in the land. Abraham builds the altar. Isaac helps, not with obedience, with understanding. The scroll doesn't lie. He asks his father, "Where is the lamb?" But his eyes are calm. He already knows. And still, he climbs, lies down, closes his eyes. Mestima stands behind Abraham now, whispers, "This is not obedience. This is madness." Abraham lifts the knife. This is not love. This is fear. Abraham's hand trembles, and for a moment, the knife drops half an inch. But before the blade can fall, the air splits. A voice, not in thunder, but in interruption. "Stop." And the name of God echoes through the marrow of the mountain. The knife freezes. Abraham sobs. The scroll curls at the edge of the page. The test is over, but not for Mestima. He's silent, watching, waiting, because he doesn't need to win. He just needs to shake you. And for a moment, he almost did. You close your eyes, breathe deep. The scroll feels warmer now, like a heartbeat in your hands. You reach the end of the chapter, and written in the smallest ink, a sentence you didn't expect. The ram was already climbing the other side, even before the test began, even before the shadow appeared, even before the fire was lit and the rope was tied. The provision was always coming. You set your stylus down, because now you understand. Faith is not blind. It's knowing the mountain holds more than one path, and walking anyway. You copy the dream as it's written, line by line, ink trembling as though it still remembers the climb. It begins in the dust, a flat stone beneath Jacob's head, a night with no fire, no tent, just stars that refuse to blink, and a silence that bends inward. He is running. You know that, not just from Esau, from guilt, from inheritance, from a name too heavy for a second-born son. But the dream does not care. It comes anyway. You've heard it before, a ladder reaching heaven. Angels ascending, descending. A voice at the top. You always thought it was symbolic. The scroll corrects you. It wasn't a metaphor. It was a door. You stop writing. Breathe. The parchment warms beneath your hand, like it's remembering something that happened outside of time. You keep copying. The ladder wasn't made of wood or gold or rope. It had no rungs. It wasn't really a ladder at all. It was a sequence. Light folded into sound, climbing through dimensions like stairs through fog. Each step a syllable. Each syllable a name. The names of angels. Not spoken, but decoded. Jacob didn't climb it. He didn't need to, because it was climbing him. You see it now. The dream was not a vision of heaven. It was an initiation. The scroll describes how the angels moved, parred, not like dancers, but like glyphs, rearranging in perfect rhythm. As they passed him, they did not speak. They observed, scanned, weighed. And something in Jacob passed, not because he was good, not because he was clean, but because he was chosen. The light stops moving. And then, a voice. Not thunder, not wind. The voice presses itself into the space above his chest. Not in Hebrew, not in any language you recognize, but the words burn into the scroll as you write them, as if they've been waiting for your hand. I am the God of Abraham and Isaac, and now I am yours. But it's what happens next that the old stories never mention. A figure steps through the top of the ladder. Not a man, not an angel, a messenger, holding something wrapped in linen. Thin, long, tablets. You pause, stunned. Jacob was not just being blessed, he was being entrusted. The tablets are not the ones from Sinai. Not yet. These are older, etched in patterns you cannot decipher, covered in letters that seem to shift when your eyes try to hold them. Not commandments, assignments, prophetic paths carved into stone, waiting to be fulfilled. Not by Moses, not by priests, but by a lineage. You copy faster now. The scroll explains that Jacob's dream was the transference of spiritual stewardship from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob. A relay. The angels were witnesses. The ladder was a conduit. The dream was a courtroom. And Jacob woke not as a fugitive, but as a keeper. You feel it settle over your shoulders. Heavy, familiar. You are not just a scribe anymore. You are beginning to copy your own inheritance. Outside the tent, the wind shifts. Something rustles at the edge of the camp. You do not move, because the scroll is not finished. Jacob does not build a pillar just to mark a dream. He builds it as an altar, a place where heaven touched earth and left something behind. The oil he pours is not just devotion, it's activation. He renames the place Bethel, not because he felt something, because something opened. You reach the last line, and it doesn't end with Jacob's name. It ends with yours. Not written in letters, but in rhythm. A pulse, a frequency, a vibration carried down from that ladder, now humming through the bones of your hands. You drop the stylus, not from fear, from awe, because now you understand. Jacob didn't dream a ladder. He became one. The scroll opens itself this time. No breeze, no hand, just parchment unfurling like it's ready to be remembered. You don't question it. You just hold your breath, lower the stylus, and wait for the ink to rise. And there, beneath the worn script of Jacob's ladder, comes a name you haven't seen yet. Yosef. Not in the language of dreams, in the language of design. The chapter begins not with a coat, but with a ledger, a record carved in something darker than ink, each line numbered, each year accounted for. The scroll reveals something no priest ever told you, something not taught in Egypt or Canaan or any temple built by mortal hands. Joseph's story was not improvised. It was engineered. The pit, the silver, the caravan, the prison, the famine, every chapter of suffering, pre-written. You blink. The scroll glows faintly, not with light, with rhythm, the kind you've come to know, the one that pulses behind the Sabbath, the one carved into the sun itself, the divine tempo. Joseph was born into it. You see the first entry, 70, 1 year before his birth. A famine will cleanse the land of idols, and one son of Jacob will become steward of Egypt's grain and prophecy. No name, just coordinates, dates. You copy with shaking hands. Each event, marked. The brothers' betrayal, the coins exchanged, the false death, the dreams of Pharaoh's servants, the prison doors opening. Not by miracle, but by timing. You want to believe it's just prediction. But then you see it. The annotations. Angels of the presence. Not just observing, but adjusting. One tilts the path of a caravan by 3 degrees, just enough for them to cross paths with Midianites. Another darkens the heart of Potiphar's wife, for just long enough. A third whispers into Pharaoh's sleep. The exact rhythm of a harvest gone wrong. Joseph never sees them, but he follows them, not with eyes, with trust. You write faster. The scroll shows moments he could have turned bitter, could have broken, but didn't, because the rhythm kept pulsing. And somewhere inside, he kept matching it, even when his mouth stayed shut, even when the iron burned his wrists, even when he stood before Pharaoh, barely clothed, with eyes hollowed by hunger and nights of silence. He didn't speak first. He listened, and the moment he opened his mouth, prophecy flowed. Not his, not entirely. A river poured through him, too old for one man, carried down from a ladder, passed through a dream, hummed through the bones of Abraham and the throat of Isaac. And it fit. You pause at the margin. You find a note scrawled sideways in a script that looks freshly inked. He who bends does not break. When he knows who's holding the pen, you set the stylus down, because now you understand. Joseph didn't survive the pit because he was strong. He survived because he was woven into something older than suffering, older than famine, older than Egypt itself. A tapestry of famine and rescue, betrayal and exaltation, carved not by chance, but by design. You reach the last entry. It's not about Joseph. It's about his bones. They're buried in Egypt, but they will not stay. Another hand will carry them home, because the story isn't finished. The rhythm hasn't stopped. You touch the page, and for a moment, you swear you feel a pulse, not beneath the parchment, but in your own chest. One beat behind his, and you know you were written too. The scroll arrives wrapped in cloth that smells like thunder. Not rain, not smoke. Thunder. It hums beneath your fingertips before you even unwrap it, like it doesn't want to be touched by skin that doubts. You hesitate, then pull the linen aside. One line greets you. Burn this after copying. You don't ask why. You already know. This is the part no one's allowed to keep. You dip your stylus and begin. It is not a story of Sinai. It begins much earlier. The reed basket, the river, the princess's arms. But the scroll doesn't linger there. It jumps, fast, deliberate, to a cave. A hidden one, carved into the wall of Horeb. Moses is not a shepherd here. Not yet a liberator. Just quiet. The man who once ran from Egypt, not from guilt, but from timing. And here, alone in the dust, he sees the flame. You think you know this part. The bush, the voice, the call. But that's not what the scroll says. It says the fire spoke in sequence. Not sentences, not commands, but echoes. And Moses didn't hear something new. He remembered something old. Because this wasn't the first time he'd heard that voice. Not truly. In the Nile, as an infant, it hummed. In the palace, behind the walls of idols, it whispered. In Midian, in his sleep, it watched. And now, it opens. You keep writing, and the page warms beneath your hand, like a furnace waiting to breathe. The scroll reveals something hidden. Moses did not receive the tablets. He recognized them when he stood on Sinai and the fire burned without consuming, when the smoke crowned the mountain and the ground shook like judgment. He was not shocked. He was remembering, because the law was older than the stones, older than Moses, older than the mountain itself. The tablets weren't created that day. They were retrieved from a vault hidden in the fold between time and obedience, a place where only rhythm can pass, a place the angels call the womb of the word. The scroll bleeds as you write that phrase. The ink runs. You pause, then press on. You see Moses climb, not once, twice, but in the hidden account, A third time. A night no priest speaks of. A windless night when no one in the camp remembers waking, and Moses leaves his tent barefoot, eyes closed, led by pulse, not path. He ascends through silence. And there, the vault opens. Not with keys, but with knowing. The tablets aren't stone anymore. They're light, pressed into form only when touched by one who remembers what they are. And Moses weeps, not because he's unworthy, because he sees what was lost, the feast days as they once were, the Sabbath as it truly pulses, the cycles of blood, bread, rest, and rhythm. Everything the world had corrupted, everything men had forgotten in favor of moons and myth. You feel your throat tighten. The scroll shows Moses lift the tablets not like treasure, but like burial shrouds, because he knows this will not be kept, not clean, not whole. The people will demand a version they can control. And so, the tablets are given, but not all of them. Only what they were ready to receive. Only what would not break them. The rest, hidden again, buried, waiting. You reach the final sentence. It's not a warning. It's a reminder. Those who carry the memory must one day remember aloud. You close your eyes. Hold your breath. The scroll glows faintly one last time, then dims. You set down the stylus, pick up the cloth, wrap it gently, and carry it to the flame. You do not look away, because fire does not erase truth. It releases it. And as the parchment curls into smoke, you swear you hear the mountain exhale, and the law begin to hum again. It begins with the smell, not incense, not offering. Ash. You wake to it, char and wind, a dry kind of silence that coats the back of your throat like soot. The camp is still. No horns, no chatter. Just a sky hung low like wet cloth, and the distant groan of something ancient being torn open. You step outside the tent, and the mountain is burning. But this is not the fire of covenant. This is sabotage. You're summoned without a voice. No angel, no priest, just a pull in your gut that knows where to go. The path is scorched in places, littered with blackened feathers and shards of something you realize, too late, is melted wax. Seals, dozens of them, melted into stone. The higher you climb, the heavier it gets. The light grows dim, even though the sun has risen. And then, halfway up, you see it. Scrolls, dozens, maybe hundreds, thrown from the mouth of a cave like trash, their spines curled from flame, their ink running in grief. Some still writhe faintly, letters twitching as though they're trying to crawl back into their own words. You kneel, touch one. It recoils, then exhales, and you see what it saw. The fire was not random. It was ordered. A rebellion, not from the people, from within the ranks of heaven. You've heard whispers of it before, that not all the angels agreed when Moses was given access, that some of them, jealous, wrathful, believed the law should remain sealed. That man should never be trusted to carry it, let alone remember it. They feared dilution. They feared corruption. But mostly, they feared replacement. And so, one of them acted. You write his name slowly, as the scroll reveals it. Not Lucifer, not Azazel, Sariel, an angel of the inner court, the keeper of flame. He didn't fall. He disagreed. He believed the fire was meant for purity, not memory. And when Moses climbed for the final time, Sariel followed, not in shadow, but in light. He waited until Moses slept, until the law rested beside him, still glowing, still wet with ink from the presence of God. And then he struck, not with violence, with fire, an old one, not the flame that warms, the one that erases, the kind that doesn't burn flesh, only truth. You grip the parchment tighter, because you realize now, Moses didn't descend with everything. He descended with what survived. And no one asked why the tablets were broken. Not really. The golden calf made for an easy excuse. But the real fracture happened before he came down. It happened in silence. You look around the ledge. This isn't just debris. It's a graveyard. Knowledge, murdered before it could be remembered. Laws that never made it into the ark. Feasts no one celebrates anymore. Sabbaths that never aligned with the moon. Calendars stripped of their music. You try to collect what you can, but each scroll you touch begins to vanish. Not into ash, into forgetting. The letters unwrite themselves, the names blur. The meaning slips like oil between your fingers. Only one remains. Thin, fragile, and bound in sinew, not string. You open it, and written, faintly, barely holding form, is a warning. When memory threatens power, power sets fire to the page. You close the scroll, hold it against your chest, and from the smoke curling off the mountain's edge, you hear the weeping of parchment. Not mourning itself, mourning us, because the fire wasn't judgment. It was protection, not for man, for heaven. And now you understand. The real tablets were never shattered. They were burned by those who could not bear what man might become if he remembered too much, too clearly, too soon. And still, you copy. The scroll arrives in silence, not delivered, left, folded into your sleeping mat like a breath someone forgot to exhale. The parchment is older than the others. You feel it before you even see it, like touching the memory of a wound. You unroll it, and time bends. It doesn't start with, in the year of, or thus says. It starts with weeping. Syllables that drip down the page like condensation, pooling in the shape of a city, not built, but cracked. Jerusalem, but not yet destroyed. You keep reading, and the ink begins to tremble. It shows you Babylon first, not as a punishment, but a clock. You write it out, brick by brick. The siege, the smoke, the king with no eyes, the temple stripped, the ark hidden, and still the rhythm doesn't stop. It just shifts, like a song transposed to a minor key. The scroll says, this exile is not failure. It's warning fulfilled. Because centuries before the Babylonians sharpened their spears, the angels had already marked the rhythm, a drift in the calendar, a bending of feasts. The appointed times fell out of alignment like stars slipping from their courses. And when time breaks, judgment follows. But it doesn't stop there. The scroll pulses again. Another city, another empire, Rome. You blink, and it's night, cold. The parchment seems to shiver in your hands as you copy what you see. Sandals stomping on the sacred, statues of Jupiter, where the incense once rose. The veil torn, again, this time not by God, but by men, soldiers. And yet the scroll doesn't call it theft. It calls it repetition, because Rome was Babylon in another key. Same song, different hands, and through it all, one phrase repeats, like a drumbeat. The calendar will be outlawed. You copy it carefully. The ink stings your eyes. You always thought calendars were harmless. Just boxes, just days. But the scroll says otherwise. The 364-day solar rhythm was never just about time. It was about order, alignment, heaven's way of marking who was still listening. And when it was abandoned, or worse, forbidden, something else took its place. Not chaos, control. You see it now. Governments declaring new Sabbaths, feasts moved by convenience, Sacred days buried under civil ones. A slow, grinding forgetfulness that looks like modernization but feels like exile, even in freedom, even in peace. The people forget, because exile doesn't always come with chains. Sometimes it comes with clocks. You pause, look back at the scroll. There are names listed now, not all of them familiar, but some. Constantine, Hadrian, Antiochus. You underline each one, not as villains, as mile markers. Each outlawed something sacred. Each changed a season. Each paved the way for forgetfulness, dressed in law. You feel your chest tighten, because it's not just the past the scroll names. There are names you've never heard before, nations that don't yet exist, languages that haven't been invented, but all of them echo the same pattern. Forget the time, forget the rhythm, forget who wrote it, and then forget who you are. You finish the last line, and a sentence appears that you did not write. The greatest exile is not leaving the land. It is losing the memory of heaven's clock. You trace it once, then again. The parchment flutters, though no wind moves. You roll it up gently and place it with the others, because now you understand. Exile doesn't always feel like punishment. Sometimes it feels like progress, but the rhythm remembers, even when you don't. It's not a scroll this time. It's a stone, left at the base of your cot, heavy, smooth, etched not with words but with rhythm. 4 lines, 7 dots, a crescent split down the middle. You know the symbol. Everyone does. It's the moon, but this one is cracked. You press your hand to it, and the vision begins. You're no longer in the camp. You're no longer in your skin. You are watching through the eyes of something old. A chamber, marble walls, lamplight dimmed to half glow. A gathering of priests in linen, so white it flickers when they move. They argue, but not loudly. Their voices are low, reverent, diplomatic, like men who are about to make a decision that will break heaven but preserve order. You already know what they're about to do, and still, you watch. They speak of the people, of confusion, of how hard it is to teach a solar rhythm when the moon is easier to track. It changes predictably, visibly. The people understand it. They follow it. They celebrate it. And so the priests agree, not because it's right, but because it's simple. They will time the feasts to the moon, not the sun, not the 364-day calendar passed down through the lines of Enoch and Noah and Abraham, but the lunar tides of convenience. The vote is taken, and no one protests. Until the angel arrives. You don't see him enter. You just feel the room tilt, like heaven suddenly leaned in. The air goes thin, and then he's there, standing in the doorway, not as flame, not as fury, but as grief wrapped in light. His wings are folded, his eyes are wet. He doesn't speak. He just weeps. And the sound is not like weeping. It's like a temple collapsing inside your chest. The priests don't look at him. They pretend they don't see. One rolls up the decree, another seals it with wax, and the youngest among them, shaking, places the lunar scroll on the altar like it belongs there. And the angel kneels. He doesn't stop them. He doesn't cry out. He just sets something small on the ground beside the altar. A fragment of stone, a sliver of the original calendar, still pulsing with the rhythm they're about to bury. And then he vanishes. You're thrown back into your own body. The stone beneath your hand is vibrating now, softly, like breath caught in marble. You look at the crack. It wasn't caused by time. It was caused by choice. You reach for your ink. You begin to copy what you saw. Not the ritual, not the vote, the betrayal. Because the moment the moon was chosen, heaven did not rage. Heaven grieved. You write it out, word for word. The moon was not cursed. It was never meant to lead. You keep writing. The light that governs the night is beautiful, but it is not the clock. You write until your hand cramps, until the stone cools beneath you, and then you sit in silence, because you understand now why the calendar was outlawed. It was never about logic. It was about influence. Control the rhythm. You control the memory. You glance at the sky. The moon is full tonight. It looks gentle, comforting, but now you know. That comfort cost something, and the cost was counted in tears no man ever saw, except you. You wake with the taste of honey turning to ash on your tongue. Something's wrong. Not with the camp, not with the air, with the scroll in your hand. At first glance, it looks like any other. Aged, creased, tinged with the scent of myrrh and oil. But the lettering is off. Not wrong, just slanted. Tilted slightly to the left, like truth leaning too far and trying not to fall. You blink. Read the first line again, and your stomach drops. Because you've read this scroll before, or thought you had. The words are familiar. The laws are the same. The feasts, the offerings, the ordinances, the lineage of priests. But then, a phrase you've never seen, tucked into the margins, so subtle you almost miss it, except when the king decrees otherwise. You freeze. That line wasn't there yesterday. You check the seal. It's unbroken. You check the ink. It's dry. You check yourself. Hands, eyes, breath. But everything is fine. Everything, except the scroll. You turn to the next page. Another change. A law rephrased. Its meaning shifted by a single word. You press your thumb to the edge of the parchment, hard, as if your body can warn it not to move again. And that's when you feel it. Not heat, not cold, just presence. The kind that hums without sound. The kind that watches without eyes. The kind that waits for you to agree to something before you realize you've already nodded. You've never seen him, but you know the name. Mestima, the adversary. Not Satan, not a serpent, not a rebel cast down by pride. Something older, something quieter, a presence that doesn't destroy scrolls. It edits them, subtly, softly, so softly that even scribes don't notice. A feast moved by one day, a commandment reworded in gentler tone, a punishment shifted from divine to civic, a truth rewritten to sound more convenient, more humane, more modern. You begin to shake, because the scroll in your hands, it isn't a forgery. It's a revision, blessed, copied, recited for generations, and yet, infected. You try to trace the edits, but they're buried like seeds in fertile soil. They bloom not in words, but in assumptions. You turn back to the first page. There, at the top, barely visible, is a sigil, one you've only seen in the margins of forbidden texts. A broken ladder wrapped in a crown of thorns. The mark of Mestima's influence. He doesn't command armies. He edits blueprints. He doesn't tempt with apples. He tempts with footnotes. And his greatest trick isn't deceit. It's certainty. You remember the angel's voice from the mountain. When memory threatens power, power sets fire to the page. But this is worse than fire. Because a burned scroll is obvious. A rewritten one is trusted. You rise. Fetch fresh parchment. You begin copying the original text from memory, the one you learned as a child, before the edits. But something in your hand trembles. Your stylus won't stay still. It's like something is resisting the old rhythm. Like the ink itself has been taught to obey a new master. You grit your teeth. Force each line down like a prayer, because now you understand. Mastema isn't trying to destroy the law. He's trying to tame it, to soften its corners, to twist its seasons, to turn commandments into suggestions and rhythm into rumor. You finish copying the last verse, seal it, then wrap it in cloth soaked in oil, not to burn, to preserve, because this scroll must not be read aloud. Not yet. You hide it beneath your bedding, beneath your doubt, and you whisper the one line Mastema cannot change. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. Then you blow out the lamp, and you wait. The scroll is gold, not gilded, not inked. The parchment itself is gold, thin as breath, flexible as skin. You hold it up to the light, and it catches like water, a shimmer that bends the air around it. You can't tell if it's warm from the sun or from within. It thrums in your hand like a heartbeat. There is no title, no seal, just the sense that if you breathe too hard, the whole thing might vanish. You sit, place the scroll on the cleanest surface you have, and open it. The first word is not written. It emerges, not in ink, in light. A single name you do not recognize, but somehow you know who it means. The scroll doesn't say Messiah. It says He who returns the rhythm. You copy the phrase slowly, like shaping a promise in clay. The words come in bursts, images, not paragraphs, symbols, not explanations. You see a man walking, but his steps cause the stars to fall back into place. You see a lamb with 7 eyes and a lion with none. You see 12 gates, but only one opens when he speaks. The scroll reveals what the others dared not whisper. The Messiah is not only Redeemer, he is timekeeper, not just a king, but the one who restores the calendar. You pause. That word again, calendar. But this time, the scroll does not mean paper or stone or even festival. It means alignment, the Sabbath, the feast days, the equinox, the rhythm of the stars. They will all return to their true places, not by decree, by presence. The Messiah will not teach the rhythm. He is the rhythm. When he walks, the days realign. When he speaks, the weeks remember. When he breathes, the seasons bend like reeds to the sun. You feel a tear slip down your cheek, not from sorrow, from recognition. Because deep down, some part of you has always felt the misalignment, the festivals that arrive too soon or too late, the Sabbath that drifts, the moon that governs instead of glows. It's been off for so long, you forgot what rightness felt like. Until now, you keep copying. And then, near the center of the scroll, a warning. The false ones will come first. You don't need translation. They'll bring calendars too. But theirs will tick like gears in a clock. Efficient, precise, soulless. They will promise order. They will outlaw chaos. But what they will never restore is meaning. Their time will be measured, not lived. The scroll continues. It says, the Messiah will not argue. He will not protest or petition. He will appear. At the end of a long silence, when men forget the sound of truth, he will step forward, not to begin something new, but to restart what was paused. You copy the final lines with your hand trembling. And then, the scroll changes. Not in content, in instruction. A new phrase appears beneath the last verse, written in letters that seem to fold and unfold like wings. Seal this scroll. It is not for now, but for the hour when time remembers itself. You stare at the words, then down at your own hands. For the first time, you realize your hands are glowing, faint, subtle, but glowing, not with power, with witness. You close the scroll, Wrap it in linen. Place it inside a clay vessel, still warm from the fire. And as you seal the jar, you whisper the line aloud, just once. Let the stars wait. He is coming. You bury it beneath your tent, beneath your fears, beneath the noise of a world too busy counting days to feel them. And for the first time in your life, you are not afraid of the end. Because now, you know what follows. The fire is small tonight. Just enough to see your hands. Just enough to watch the ink dry. You don't light it for warmth anymore. You light it for rhythm. The way the flame flickers every seventh breath. The way it bends toward the east, as if remembering Eden. You time your strokes with it. You breathe in silence. Out memory. And still, something feels off. You reach into your satchel, pull out the next scroll. But this one is different. It's wrapped in cloth. Not linen, not wool, but something tougher. Sinew, maybe. Stitched tight with black thread. When you undo it, you flinch. Not from fear, from the smell. Iron. You know that smell. Everyone does. The taste of blade, the scent of wounds, the scent of blood. You unroll the scroll, and for a moment, nothing happens. Just blank parchment. Then, words rise. Not written, revealed, as if they were already there, just waiting for your eyes to adjust. The first line isn't prophecy. It's declaration. The day will come when scrolls are no longer needed, for the law will be written not on stone, but in flesh. You hesitate, because something about the words unsettles you. They don't feel like poetry. They feel like surgery. You keep reading. The scroll tells of a future when tablets will be obsolete, when no priest will carry parchment, no scribe will ink laws in midnight vigil, no child will have to memorize rhythms, because the rhythm will live inside them. Hearts, veins, breath. The commandments will not be recited. They will pulse. You imagine it. A world where Sabbath is felt without clocks, where mercy is instinct, not command, where justice is written in bone. But then, the next paragraph, the cost. It doesn't come in metaphor. It comes in detail. You see flashes. A garden, not Eden, but one like it, soaked in sweat and dread. A man weeping alone, though his hands shine with the memory of galaxies. A whip that doesn't strike parchment, but back. A crown made not of jewels, but thorns. And blood. So much blood. You copy it all, line by line. You feel your hand cramp, not from effort, from grief, because the scroll is clear. This writing, this law in flesh, will not come by decree. It will come by cutting. The word will be opened, torn, laid bare, so that others may carry it within. You pause. Wipe your eyes. You've transcribed wars, floods, betrayals, edits, exiles. But this is different. This is consent. A willing wound. You trace the final line. The scrolls were shadows, but the heart is the final tablet. You whisper it aloud, and as you do, your chest tightens. Not from fear, from recognition, because deep down, you've always known. The scrolls were never the end. They were rehearsal. The real covenant was always meant to be embodied. You look down at your hands, stained with ink, trembling slightly, and you wonder if, one day, scribes will no longer write, but bleed. You close the scroll, wrap it gently, and this time, you don't store it with the others. You press it to your chest, because for the first time, you don't feel like a copyist. You feel like a vessel. And the fire in front of you, it flickers once, then bends toward you. He appears as dust. You don't hear footsteps, Don't feel a breeze. Don't smell oil or wool or sweat. Just the quiet shift in the light behind you. A subtle change. A breath held too long. You freeze mid-stroke. Ink still wet. The forbidden scroll half unrolled on the stone slab, its letters still humming faintly, not with sound, but with memory. You know better than to move, or to speak first. But he does. What is that? His voice is soft. Too soft. Not suspicion. Yet. You slowly turn. He's not old. Not young. The kind of priest who blends into corridors. Trusted. Respected. Nearly invisible. His eyes fall on the parchment. Then back to you. He doesn't blink. You search for a lie, but your throat tightens. I was practicing, you say. He steps closer. Practicing what? You force a laugh. It sounds hollow. An old legend, from one of the desert scrolls, not canon. His eyes don't leave the text. He tilts his head slightly, reading upside down. You know he recognizes the format. He knows this isn't legend. It's sealed. You know the rule, he says. You nod. You don't trust your voice. Where did you get it? You lie. A traveler. Bartered it for salt and thread. He narrows his eyes. Then, just when you think he'll reach for it, he steps back. 1 pace. 2. He doesn't speak again. Doesn't accuse you. Doesn't demand the scroll. He just turns. Walks away. But he doesn't take his shadow with him. It lingers in the doorway long after he's gone. You stare at the parchment. The room feels colder. The letters no longer hum. You close the scroll. Slowly. Wrap it in the old lambskin sleeve you stitched for emergencies. Not reverently. Not casually. With the care of someone who understands that one mistake now doesn't mean punishment. It means disappearance. You tuck it under your sleeping mat. Not deep. Not hidden. Just delayed. The silence stretches. You listen for alarms. Shouting. Footsteps. Nothing. You breathe again, but only halfway, because he saw and chose not to stop you, which is worse. You replay his tone, his question, his eyes. He knew exactly what he saw, but he said nothing, and that nothing is louder than any accusation. You wonder what he's doing now. Reporting you? Praying? Reading his own copy in secret? Or waiting? Not for orders, but for your next move. You try to keep writing, but your hand won't steady. You wipe the ink, close the lamp, lie back against the stone and stare at the ceiling as if it might offer counsel. And then you notice it. A faint mark in the dust near the doorway. The shape of a sandal. Paused, turned, watching. He stood there longer than you thought. Long enough. You press your fingers to your chest, feel your own rhythm, and you wonder, did he see you? Or was he waiting for a sign? A confirmation? A permission? The scrolls have always warned of external threats, kings, wars, edits, fires. But they never warned you of this. The priest who says nothing, who leaves, who lets you continue, and whose shadow stays behind. You close your eyes, try to forget the way he looked at you. But you can't, because somewhere in his silence, there was recognition, and somewhere in yours, there was agreement. You wake to silence. Not the gentle kind, the kind that follows after something is taken. You blink in the morning dim, expecting to hear the usual, the creak of sandals on stone, the thrum of recitations echoing down the corridor, the soft rhythm of a world too tired to lie. But there is nothing. No voices. No footsteps. No wind. Just you. And a stillness too complete. You sit up slowly. Rub your eyes. Your fingers smell of ink. Familiar. Bitter. slightly metallic. You look around, and your stomach tightens. The scrolls are gone. Not just the forbidden ones, all of them. The shelf where you kept your daily logs is bare. The cubby where your personal notes waited is empty. Even the indentation in the stone where the clay ink jar once sat is smoother, erased. You check beneath your sleeping mat. Nothing, not even dust. You stand. The room feels smaller somehow. Not physically, spiritually, like the air has collapsed in on itself. You walk to the door, fling it open. The corridor is bright, too bright. Your eyes burn. A figure passes. A young priest you've known for years. You call his name. He doesn't turn. You call again. He stops, turns. Polite confusion on his face. Yes, it's me, you say, stepping into the light. From the scriptorium. We copied together. The calendar revisions. The Enochic fragments. He frowns. I'm sorry. I don't recognize you. Are you new here? You open your mouth to protest, but the words die before they form. Because you suddenly don't know if you're new here. You look down at your robes. They're clean. Too clean. No ink smears. No burned thread. Not even the usual callus on your finger from years of quill work. You touch your palm. Smooth. Untouched. You turn and run. Down the corridor. Past the dormitories. Past the prayer chamber. Past the courtyard where you buried a scroll in a clay jar 4 nights ago beneath the southern fig tree. You dig. Dirt flies. Nails break. Nothing. No jar. No tree. No mark in the soil. As if the tree never grew there at all. As if you never stood there at all. You stumble back, breath hitching. You need proof. You race to the upper chamber, where the temple keeps its roster, the Book of Scribes, etched and updated weekly. You find the name of your mentor, the name of your roommate, the names of initiates and outcasts, and those who died decades ago, but not yours. Your name is not there. You check again, not once, not twice, but 10 times, and still nothing. Not a blank space, not an erasure, just absence. You lean on the wall, and that's when you notice the smell again. Ink. It's stronger now. You look at your hands. The palms are blank, but the backs are stained black, up to the wrist, as if you've been writing without pause, as if the scrolls never left you. They simply moved inward. You stumble back to your chamber. Open the desk you don't remember carving. Inside, a single item. A wax seal. Red. Unbroken. You don't open it, because you already know what it says. The assignment is complete. The scrolls are safe. And your name was never meant to be remembered, because sometimes the scribe must vanish, so the word may remain. You sit, place your hands on the desk, and the ink fades, not away, inward. The wind changes before the knock. Not a breeze, not weather, something deeper, a shift behind the ribs, the feeling that a season has ended without telling the trees. You light the lamp anyway, though you no longer need it. You haven't needed light to see in days, not since the room forgot what darkness meant. You've stopped counting how long you've been here. You've stopped wondering if anyone else remembers you. The days come soft now, folded like cloth, and you live inside them, one layer at a time, until tonight. When the knock comes, no one stands at the threshold. Only a shape, veiled in shadow, that somehow glows. It doesn't step forward. It waits, as if it knows you're the one who must decide. You do. You rise. The table is clean. Not a scroll. Not a pen. Not even dust. You clear your throat, out of habit, There's no one to speak to, but it feels wrong to be silent. The shape lifts both arms, and what it places before you is not a scroll, not even a tablet. It's light, condensed, solid, quiet. A slab of pure radiance, shaped like nothing you've ever written on, but instantly familiar, like the face of someone you loved before your birth, like a word you forgot you knew. You don't touch it at first. You just watch it rest. It hums, not with sound, but memory. Then, slowly, you reach out, and the moment your fingers graze it, everything vanishes. Not the room. You. There is no table, no temple, no chamber, only beginning. You are no longer standing. You are falling, but not down. Inward. The slab pulls you, not physically, not violently, but with a gravity older than the sun. Your breath leaves. Your thoughts shatter. You are not frightened. You are remembering. Your mother's breath, her blood, the dark warmth of the womb, the moment your lungs opened like scrolls. The first sound you ever heard, a heartbeat not your own. Then further, you remember the shimmer of your soul before it clothed itself in skin. You remember the breath that summoned Adam from the soil. You remember the silence that hovered just before light was spoken into being. You remember fire, not the destructive kind, the kind that knows, the kind that watches, the kind that keeps. The slab isn't a message. It's a mirror, but not of your face, of your design. You see the gears behind your will, the calendar etched into your marrow, the pulses that match the Sabbath, the rhythm that was always written inside you, long before you learned to hold a pen. The words aren't on the tablet. They are you. You are the final tablet. You try to breathe, but it's not necessary. You try to speak, but you already have. You see yourself, not in the present, but stretched across centuries, copying, witnessing, hiding things no one asked you to. You see each scroll you ever touched, how it never really left your hands. You see every priest who forgot your name, every chamber that claimed you never existed. You see them not with bitterness, but clarity. They were never meant to remember you, because the final record was never in their archives. It was you. The light pulses again, slower now, gentler. It releases you, like a tide slipping back to sea. You're in the room again, hands resting on the glowing tablet. But now, you understand. You were never the copyist. You were never the archivist. You were the archive. Your heartbeat steadies. You press your hand to the light, not to read, to affirm. And the moment you do, the slab dissolves. Not shattered, not taken, just absorbed, drawn into your hand like breath into a lung. And the hum, that ancient vibration, settles behind your ribs. You are empty and full, blank and inscribed. A knock again, soft. You rise, open the door. A child stands there, eyes wide, voice small. I'm here for my assignment. You don't answer right away. You just nod and step aside, because now you understand what comes next. You are sitting in the courtyard when he returns. Not a whisper, not a flame, just presence. The kind that makes birds fall silent and shadows lean toward the light instead of away. You do not rise. You know better now. He doesn't walk. He doesn't float. He simply arrives, as if he was always here, just waiting for you to notice. You lower your gaze, not out of reverence, out of recognition. The angel is older than the sun, older than language. His face is the kind you never quite remember, and yet have never forgotten. You've seen it in dreams, in firelight, in the eyes of strangers who speak your name like a question. He waits. Then, finally, you speak. I thought I had finished. His smile is quiet. You did. You pause. But there's one more. He nods once. There always is. You study him now. The robes shimmer. Not gold, not silver, but some element the world hasn't remembered in thousands of years. His wings are not wings. They are light bent into shape, fragments of law, still warm from the breath of God. He kneels. Something you thought angels didn't do. And when he does, the earth beneath his knees forgets how to age. From his robe, he draws a parchment, but not like any you've seen. It is made of nothing and everything, a substance that shifts between fiber, flame, and skin. It hums in your bones. It recognizes you. He places it on your lap. Read. You hesitate. Is it mine? He doesn't answer. You look. There's no ink, no letters, no script, just a pattern. At first it looks like chaos, swirls, pulses, waves, till you blink and realize you're looking at a heartbeat, your own, a transcript of your rhythm, a chronicle of every breath you've ever taken and every word you never dared speak. It's not a story. It's a soul. Yours. Etched in a language not taught, but revealed. The angel watches you. This is the original. You frown. But I don't remember writing it. He tilts his head. You didn't write it. You are it. And suddenly you see, the ink you've carried on your fingers for years wasn't applied. It was leaking. Your fingertips were never stained. They were bleeding truth. Every scroll, every tablet, every forbidden parchment you thought you were copying was a mirror. You weren't transcribing knowledge. You were remembering it. Your very existence is transcription. The breath of God, captured in a body, the memory of the divine, encoded in skin and bone and silence. You trace the edges of the parchment. It pulses. And in that pulse, you begin to see the names, not just yours, the others, the ones like you, the ones who walked forgotten corridors, wrote in ash, burned their own testimonies to keep them safe, the archivists, the stewards, the rememberers. You feel them inside the scroll, each name written in a different rhythm, but all echoing the same origin. You were never recruited, the angel says. You were revealed. You blink. A memory flashes. The first scroll. The wax seal. The way your name had already been printed on the inside before you opened it. You didn't sign it. You recognized it. He leans closer now. His voice is softer than ever. You weren't called to this role. You were this role from the beginning. You look up. Tears blur your vision, but not from sorrow, from homecoming, because the ache you've felt all your life, the restlessness, the feeling that something was missing even when everything made sense, it was never loss. It was latency. You were waiting for the page to turn, for the truth to arrive, and now it has. You try to speak, but the words fall short. The angel reaches out, places one hand over your heart, and you feel it. The ink, not outside you anymore, not hidden in scrolls, but alive, in your blood, in your breath, in every cell of you. You are the tablet, he says, and you are the ink. Then he lifts the parchment from your lap and folds it, not once, but 3 times. Each fold makes the world around you ripple. He places the folded scroll against your chest, and it vanishes. Not gone. Kept. He rises. You stand. The courtyard is still silent. But now, the silence feels different. Not empty. Full. Awaiting. You will walk among them again, the angel says. They won't know you, but they will feel you. How? He smiles. The way a hand remembers fire, the way time remembers stars. He turns, and you know this is the last time you'll see him. Because you don't need him anymore. Not like that. Because your name was never added to the record. It was never missing. It was always there, carved before the foundation of the world. Not as a note, not as a footnote, as the opening line. You wake before the horn again. Not to a sound, but to a stillness. The kind of stillness that follows thunder, that fills the space after a scream has ended. You lie there for a moment, not breathing, not blinking, letting the quiet speak first. You are not afraid. Not anymore. The room is empty. Truly empty this time. No desk, no scrolls, no wax seals or ash on the floor. Even the dust has left, as if it, too, was waiting for an ending. But it doesn't feel like loss. It feels like completion. You rise slowly. Your body feels lighter, but not weak, as if something heavy has finally been removed or returned. You touch your chest. The folded parchment is gone, but you still feel its shape. Under your skin, you walk to the basin, look in the mirror. Your face is the same, but the eyes, you've seen the tablets. You've held the scroll that ticked like a clock. You've read words not written in ink, but in flame and memory. You know now that truth isn't stored on paper. It doesn't belong to temples or vaults or locked rooms. It lives. It breathes. And this is your body remembering that it was always scripture. You dress in silence. The robe falls around you like it used to. Simple, undecorated. But now, you know what it covers. Not shame, not smallness. The word. You step to the door. The handle feels warm. You open it, and the world greets you without fanfare. No trumpet, no angel, no pillar of fire. Just light, perfect light. You walk slowly. Everything looks unchanged. The path you've walked 1,000 times. The steps worn from generations of sandals. The fig trees swaying gently in the morning wind. But the air feels cleaner, as if something invisible has been washed away. You pass a group of young scribes. They do not look up. You do not expect them to. You're not here to be seen. You're here to witness. Because something is different now. You look up, and you feel it before you see it. The sun. Not just shining, aligned. Not metaphorically, literally. The shadows fall exactly where they should. The courtyard is measured in perfect segments, light and time in complete agreement. Every beam of sunlight touches the ground as though it remembers the covenant. The calendar is healed. The sky is no longer lagging behind the law. Creation is finally reading from the correct script, and your body knows it. Each breath syncs with the rhythm of heaven. Each step is an echo of Genesis. You walk to the edge of the wall. Look out across the wilderness. The sands shimmer, but not from heat, from clarity. You remember what the angel told you. You will walk among them again. They will not know you, but they will feel you. And you see it now, in the way the breeze moves ahead of your steps, in the way the birds pause mid-call, as if listening, in the way the world waits for you to continue. Because you are no longer just a witness. You are the word walking, a scroll in sandals, a living memory of a covenant too old for ink. You see a child near the gate. He's watching the sun. His lips are moving, softly, counting, measuring. You know that rhythm. It's the same one etched behind your ribs. You smile, because he doesn't need a teacher. The law is in him now, like it is in you. You kneel beside him. He doesn't flinch. You point at the shadow of a tree trunk beside him, how it cuts the dirt at a perfect angle. It wasn't like this before, he says. You nod. He looks up at you, eyes wide. What changed? You pause. Think of the cave, the ticking scroll, the slab of light, the ink that was always blood. And you answer simply, "The world remembered." He frowns. "Remembered what?" You place your hand on your chest, then on his. "That it was written." A pause. He nods slowly, then looks back at the sun. He doesn't ask your name, and you don't offer it, because your name is not for people to speak anymore. It is spoken by the earth now, by the stars, by the turning of seasons that no longer drift. You rise, step back, and feel something in your spine click gently into place, like a sundial finding noon. The final alignment. You walk again, not toward a task, not toward a mission, toward being, because the copyist is no longer needed. The final copy has already been made, and it breathes, it wakes, it walks, and it opens its eyes before the horn.